We have a lot of interesting news today. Things are moving. Current status, we still have the trajectory going up. We have not turned the trajectory, nor have we hit the apex. Remember what that line is going to do. It's going to go up. It's going to reach a high point. It's going to tip. It's going to go back down. We're still on the way up the mountain. Number of infections that have been coming in, 80% still self-resolved. About 15% of the people who test positive require hospitalization. And then there are degrees of hospitalization, right? But the total universe that requires hospitalization is 15%. We use projection models. We have Cornell Weill, which is a great medical institution that does projection models. We use McKinsey that does projection models. Department of Health does projection models. The projection models are important because they are projecting the possible trajectory and projecting the possible need, right? So we're planning for a need. The projection models do that. The projection models are just that. They are models of projections. They're not necessarily definitive, but it's the only device that we have to plan, right? Follow the data, follow the data, follow the data. The actual hospitalizations have moved at a higher rate than the projected models, than all the projected models. So that was obviously concerning because that higher infection rate means faster, higher capacity on the hospitals, and that's the critical point for us is the number of people going to hospitals. Right now, what we're looking at is about 140,000 cases coming into the hospitals. The hospital capacity is 53,000 beds. That's a problem. We're looking at about 40,000 ICU cases coming into the hospitals. We have about 3,000 ICU beds. That's a challenge. What is an ICU bed for these purposes? Basically a bed with a ventilator. The ventilator is the most critical piece of equipment for an intensive care unit bed because this is a respiratory illness and people need more ventilation than usual. What do we want to do? Reduce the number of cases coming into the hospitals, slow the number of cases coming into the hospitals. That's what Dr. Fauci is talking about on TV every day. Flatten the curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. Slow the number of people coming into hospitals so we can deal with them in the hospitals. And we are working on that. At the same time, increase your hospital capacity, right? So try to slow the number of cases coming into the hospital, meanwhile raise your hospital capacity. We are working on both simultaneously. We have been from day one. Reduce the number of cases coming in, flatten the curve, slow the spread of the infection. We are doing everything we can on that. That's banning non-essential workers, that's social distancing, that's closing restaurants, closing gyms, just flatten the curve, slow the infection rate. In terms of numbers, total tested, we're up to 103,000 people. New tests, we're up to 12,000. As of yesterday, about 28% of all testing nationwide has been performed by the state of New York. The state of New York is doing more testing than any state in the United States of America. And I'm very proud of the team on how we've mobilized and gotten this testing up and running. People ask, how does this testing work? Any hospital in the state can perform testing. You can walk into a hospital in Buffalo, New York. If you show the symptoms and meet the protocol, you can be tested. Strategically, we deploy testing in the most dense areas. Where do we set up the drive-thrus, et cetera? Why? Because we're hunting positives. We're hunting positives so we can isolate them and reduce the spread. You're more likely to get positives in high positive areas, right? Set up a drive-thru in the Bronx versus set up a drive-thru in Chautauqua County. You're going to get more positives in the Bronx, and that's what we want. But Anyone, anywhere in the state, you have symptoms, you're concerned, you can walk into any hospital. That hospital can get a test performed. Number of positive cases, we're up to 30,000. Number of new cases, 5,000. Again, you see the numbers, 17,000 New York City, 4,000 in Westchester, 3,000 in Nassau County. Relatively, Westchester, we have dramatically slowed what was an exponential increase. So, again, on the good news side, can you slow the rate of infection? Yes. How do you know? Look at what we did in Westchester. That was the hottest cluster in the United States of America. We closed the schools, we closed gatherings, we brought in testing, and we have dramatically slowed the increase. Nassau County is 3,000. They're relatively right behind Westchester. They were at like 0 when Westchester had started. So we can slow it, and we have slowed it. Again, you see it spreading across the state, which we said it would. Current numbers, 30,000 tested, positive. 12% of those who test positive are hospitalized. 3% of the positives are in ICU. Okay? This is deep breath time again. I'm anxious, I'm nervous. What does it mean? 30,000 tested positive. 12% are in the hospital. 3% are in ICU. If you look at those 3%, they're going to be predominantly senior citizens, people with underlying illnesses, people with emphysema, people with a compromised immune system. That's what this effort is all about. All the noise, all the energy, it's about that 3%. Take a deep breath. Now, that 3%, that's my mother, that's your sister. These are people we love. These are our grandparents. And we're going to do everything we can to protect every one of them. And I give the people of the state of New York my word that we're doing it. But we're talking about 3% of the people who tested positive, who we're worrying about. Most impacted states, we're at 30,000. Next closest state is New Jersey at 3, California 2. This is a really dramatic differential, and this is what I argue to anyone who will listen. We have 10 times the problem that the next state has, which is New Jersey. You compare us to California, which is larger in terms of population. We have 15 times the problem. Now, you have to ask yourself, why? Why does New York have such a high number? And again, in the totality, we understand what it means. But why does New York have such a high number? And this is my personal opinion. I like to make sure that I separate facts from personal opinion. The facts I give you are the best facts I have. And again, the data changes day to day, but I give you exactly what I have on a day-to-day basis. Personal opinion, why does New York have so many more cases than any other state? How can it be? You're 15 times the number of California. I mean, it really is breathtaking when you think about it. State of Massachusetts with 30 times the number of cases. So why is the question that people ask me. Two answers. Answer one is because we welcome people from across the globe. We have people coming here, we have people who came here from China, who came here from Italy, who came here from countries all around the globe. We have international travelers who were in China and who were in Italy and who were in Korea and who came here. And I have no doubt that the virus was here much earlier than we even know. And I have no doubt that the virus was here much earlier than it was in any other state, because those people come here first. That's the first answer. The second answer is, because we are close, we talk about the virus and how it transfers in a dense area. It's literally because we are close, because we live close to one another, because we're close to one another on the street, because we live in close communities, because we're close to one another on the bus, we're close to one another in the restaurant, we're close to one another in the movie theater. And we have one of the most dense, close environments in the country. And that's why the virus communicated the way it did. Our closeness makes us vulnerable. Our closeness makes us vulnerable. That spatial closeness makes us vulnerable. But it's true that your greatest weakness is also your greatest strength. And our closeness is what makes us who we are. That is what New York is. Our closeness is what makes us special. Our acceptance, our openness is what makes us special. It's what makes us feel so connected one to another. It's what makes us so accepting of one another. It is the closeness that makes us the human beings that we are. The closeness is that New York humanity that I think exists nowhere else. The closeness is what makes our sense of community. And there's a gentleman who I still look to for guidance and for leadership and for inspiration. He's not here anymore for you. He's still here for me. But he said things more profound and more beautifully than most other people ever have. And one of the things he said that is so appropriate for today, we believe in a single fundamental idea that describes better than most textbooks and any speech that I could write what a proper government should be. The idea of family, mutuality, the sharing of benefits and burdens for the good of all, feeling one another's pain, sharing one another's blessings, reasonably, honestly, fairly, without respect to race or sex or geography or political affiliation. That is New York. It is that closeness, that concept of family, of community. That's what makes New York, New York. And that's what made us vulnerable here. But it is also that closeness and that connection and that humanity and that sharing that is our greatest strength. And that is what is going to overcome at the end of the day. I promise you that. I can see how New Yorkers are responding. I can see how New Yorkers are treating one another. I see the 6,000 mental health volunteers. I see the 40,000 healthcare workers stepping up. I see the vendors calling me saying, I can help. That's New York. That's New York. And that, my friends, is undefeatable. And I am glad, in some ways, that we're first with this situation, because we will overcome. And we will show the other communities across this country how to do it. We'll be there for them. We want them to be there for us. And we will be there for each other, as we always have been. Any questions